Unveiled, the sinister revenge of a haunted lover, 10 shocking days of cursed online exposure. Emily always thought life had a way of surprising you, but nothing prepared her for this. It began as innocently as scrolling through her phone on a mundane Tuesday night, the norm in the sprawling suburbs of Dallas. Yet, as she skimmed through her social media, a chilling message popped up, weaving panic into the fabric of her evening. "I see you, Emily. I know your secrets." The sender was a name she once cherished, Jake. 5 days had passed since Emily ended things with Jake, and she thought she'd finally escaped his shadow. He had started sweet, a gentleman lured from dreams, but jealousy soon twisted into possession. The charming facade slipped, revealing darkness that made her skin crawl. She cut ties, but now the reckoning hung over her like an impending storm. As she read the words again, her heart hammered like a frantic drummer. What does he mean? Was he really watching her? The thought sent chills down her spine. Just then, a notification made her jump, a new message. Pictures of her home appeared, each angle familiar, yet all unsettling. The quiet suburban neighborhood she'd once felt safe in now felt like a cage. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through images, capturing the very essence of her life: the porch, the backyard, and even Mia's open window upstairs. She shook her head, trying to dismiss it as an elaborate prank. But as the days rolled on, the messages increased in frequency and intimacy, second by second sinking into a darkness that threatened to engulf her. "I can get into your head, you're not alone," Emily read one note, and she felt her breath hitch. Had he really been lurking, breathing down her neck? "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As nights grew colder, strange occurrences began to unravel her sanity. Dishes rattled in the kitchen when no one was home. Whispers skittered through the hallways, an echo of her own fears, gnawing at every moment of solace. Doorways appeared to shift, shadows flickering just beyond the corner of her eye. Sitting at the diner, her nerves had frayed into a barely held-together thread of composure, each clattering plate sounding like an ominous warning. Desperate, she approached the local police, her voice tremoring. "You have to help me. Someone's threatening me." The officers exchanged glances, smirking as the chief dismissed her concerns. "Online harassment can be a nuisance, ma'am, but we can't track shadows." A chill settled in her chest. If they wouldn't help her, who would? Filled with despair, she confided in her neighbor, Carol, hoping for reassurance. "It gets dark out there. You can never be too careful," Carol said, her tone eerily calm. Yet, in the depths of those reassuring eyes, Emily detected flickers of a harrowing past. As the days dwindled to an imminent climax, specters from the past grasped at her. Jake was only the beginning. A more alarming story unfolded from the very roots of their suburban neighborhood, a curse tied to old grievances and ghosts begging to be unearthed. With each tick of the clock, the reality intensified. When the messages escalated into brazen acts of terror, Emily knew she had to uncover the truth. Standing on the brink of a revelation that could devour her whole, she trembled as she realized the fear hadn't just begun with Jake. It didn't end with her, it was wrapped around the whispers of those who had walked these streets long before her. As Emily pieced together the sinister connections, the air grew colder with dread. The final message, a single, haunting line, pierced her like an icy dagger: "You were never meant to leave." And as Emily stared out of her window into the suffocating darkness unfolding before her, she understood that the shadows were not just lurking, they were alive, closing in. Time was running out. Who could she trust, and how far would Jake go to ensure she wouldn't escape? The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters and filling the room with an unsettling symphony. Emily pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, fighting the chill both from outside and deep within her bones. Her phone lit up beside her, and she froze. The screen flashed with an ominous notification. "Emily, you're too quiet. Come out and play." Her stomach dropped. How had he found her again? She glanced at the locked doors, lingering on every creak of the old house that felt, for the first time, like a stranger's fortress. Was Jake standing just outside, hidden in the shadows? Or had he found a way to invade her thoughts even more deeply than before? Determined to shake off the fear clawing at her insides, she grabbed her phone and quickly typed a message in response, her fingers trembling over the screen. "You don't scare me." It was a bold front, but inside, her heart raced like a runaway train. But the reply came in almost instantly, and that quickness sent a shiver down her spine. "I know. That's why it's fun." Fun. The word echoed in her mind, twisted into something sinister. She tossed her phone away, feeling like it burned her skin. She didn't want to dwell on what Jake considered fun. She needed to think, to regain control over her life, to shield herself from the storm he had unleashed. She dragged herself into the kitchen to make tea, seeking comfort in the familiar. As the kettle boiled, she spotted the window, the curtains slightly parted. She tried to dismiss the uneasy feeling growing inside her. It was late, it was empty outside. Yet instinct screamed for vigilance. Could he really be watching, hiding somewhere in the shadowed corners of her yard? The kettle let out a shrill scream breaking the silence, and she jumped. With trembling hands, she poured boiling water over the tea bag. Steam billowed up, obscuring her view of the window. As she turned away, the silence fell heavy again. The air felt laden with secrets, whispers of the past swirling just out of reach. Her thoughts drifted back to Carol. The woman had seemed too calm, too collected in the face of Emily's terror. "You can never be too careful even now," those words echoed, ringing like a warning bell in her mind. What had Carol gone through? What shadows followed her? A sudden crash reverberated through the house. Emily nearly dropped the mug, spilling hot tea across the countertop. Heart pounding, she raced towards the source, the living room. The room was dark, shadows merging with the corners, blurring the lines between reality and nightmares. She stepped cautiously. A picture frame lay shattered on the floor, the glass glinting in the dim light. But it wasn't just the fallen frame that sent a chill down her spine, it was the message that lay beside it, scrawled in red ink. "If you want to listen to me, then you'll listen to me." Trembling, Emily picked up the paper. It was a photo of her taken yesterday, right as she left Mia's school. Panic enveloped her. He was closer than she thought, inching towards her every day, learning her life's rhythm. The air felt charged, heavy with the tension of inevitability. She had to escape, she had to break free. But where to go when the world felt small, and danger lurked from every shadow? Suddenly, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps on her porch. Each thud sent ripples of dread swirling within her. Someone was outside, and it wasn't Mia or a neighbor. In that moment of terror, she realized, the walls were not just her protection, they had become a prison. Could Jake really be standing on her doorstep, the embodiment of her nightmares? With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath, edging towards the door that separated her from whatever was waiting outside. But as she reached for the handle, another message chimed on her phone. "Open the door, Emily. It's time to let the ghosts in." What would she do now? Facing the truth or facing the monster? The weight of her decisions loomed over her like a cold shadow. Emily's fingers hovered over the doorknob. Her heart beat against her chest like a war drum, and for a fleeting moment, she considered bolting for the back door. But where would she go? Outside, the world was dark and unforgiving, a vast expanse of uncertainty and Jake. "Open the door, Emily. It's time to let the ghosts in." The words repeated in her head, twisting her insides like a vice. She wanted to scream, to yell at the haunted boy who wouldn't let her escape, but instead, she could only whisper a soft, plaintive, "No." The footsteps on the porch paused, and an eerie silence filled the air. She held her breath, waiting, praying that the absence of sound meant he had gone. But then, softly, almost tenderly, she heard him call her name. Emily. It was a siren's song, low and inviting, breathing life into her worst fears. Backing away from the door, she almost stumbled over the shattered frame. The cold glass cut her skin as she knelt to pick up the scattered pieces, shards glinting in the pale light. I have to be strong, she reminded herself like a mantra, but the panic gnawed at her resolve. As she tried to steady her breath, she spotted the photo, her own face staring back at her, frozen in time. But then she noticed something else tucked away beneath the frame. It was a second picture, carefully folded. She opened it, her pulse racing when she recognized the image, Jake, standing outside her workplace from the previous week. There was no mistaking it, he wore that same smug grin that had haunted her dreams. Fury bubbled beneath her fear. How could he invade her life like this? How much longer could this go on? Suddenly, the tepid tea she'd been trying to sip earlier felt like poison in her stomach. Another thud from the porch jerked her back to reality. The sound was heavier now, deliberate. Let me in, Emily. You know I'm only here to help. Help? The word twisted in her gut. How could a boy who thrived on fear and manipulation be anything close to helpful? She peered through the peephole, but all she saw was darkness, a cloak that swallowed everything around it. With shaking hands, she grabbed her phone again, desperate to grasp some semblance of control. Her throat felt dry as she thumbed through her contacts, hesitating just a moment too long before landing on Carol's name. The woman had answers, she'd seen the darkness, she had dealt with it. Emily pressed the call button, her hands trembling with urgency. One ring, two. Three long rings echoed painfully in the silence until her heart plummeted. Just as she was about to hang up, Carol's voice broke through, a thin thread of calm amidst the chaos. Emily? Is everything okay? And then came another knock, this one sharp and swift, rattling the door, shaking her to the core. Emily, are you in there? Open the door. Who are you talking to? Her heart raced. It was both Jake's voice and the haunting echo of dread that surged through her. She glanced back through the peephole, but this time she swore she saw a flash of movement outside, something shifting in the darkness, something more than just a human form. Listen to me, Emily. You have to run before it's too late. Carol's words filtered through, barely audible over the panic swirling in her chest. But where? Where could I go? She cried, glancing back at the doorknob, feeling the heaviness of possible regrets pressing down on her shoulders. The knock came again, more violent this time. You're not safe. If you don't let me in, you'll regret it. Emily. Carol urged, her voice firmer this time. Trust me. You need to. A deep, visceral growl interrupted Carol, reverberating through the door, heavy with threat. It was then Emily realized the truth. It wasn't just Jake outside. Every word that followed felt like a countdown to impending doom. You can't escape from this. Let me in or face the consequences. Her heart thudded like an ancient drum as she understood, there was nowhere to hide. In her mind, a single question seared like branding iron: who would she let in first? The air shimmered with tension, thick enough to suffocate. Emily's heart raced as conflicting voices battled in her mind. What if she opened the door? Would Jake really come in to help, or would it unleash something far worse? Every knock echoed like thunder rolling through her thoughts. Emily. Don't ignore me. Jake's voice sliced through her panic, sharp and persistent. He was relentless, like a predator cornering its prey. The growl returned, a low, menacing rumble that prickled her skin and made her stomach twist. What was outside? She glanced at the reflection of her pale face in the broken glass pieces scattered on the floor. What had she become? Rage bubbled just under her skin, battling the overwhelming fear gnawing at her resolve. I want to let you in, she whispered into the silence, though the mere act of saying that made her wonder if her stubbornness led her closer to madness. Suddenly, with a swift crack, the front door trembled as something pounded against it with ferocity, splintering the wood. You think locking me out will save you? I've been here all along. Jake's voice twisted into a coarse snarl that sent chills racing through her. Desperate, Emily turned back to her phone, but the screen was dark. No bars. No connection. She smashed the device against the wall in frustration, shards raining down like her hopes of escape. What now? She gasped, the pang of fear clutching her throat. Muffled whispers flitted through the door like shadows haunting cries, barely audible but unmistakably filled with sorrow and anger. The ghosts of his past, she realized, were haunting her now. Let me show you the truth, Emily. You're too weak to understand what happens when you cast away love, Jake called out, and a shudder passed through her as memories rushed in, suffocating her with their weight. The late-night phone calls, the laughter turned to tears, and the promises, oh, the promises. Suddenly, the deadbolt rattled, as if something sinister was at work from the other side. With pure instinct, Emily darted to the window, fear clawing at her throat. Outside, shadows danced around the porch. Grinning faces flickered in and out of existence, a menagerie of torment victims drawn to the chaos. Emily. Let me in, or they'll take you. Jake hissed, but she only felt the cold seep deeper into her bones. She moved back from the window, heart pounding in rhythm with the thrumming against the door. Her mind raced as she searched for an escape route. There had to be another way out. A chilling thought crossed her mind: what if she was the real threat? Could her fear be drawing these things to her? The questions felt heavy, chaining her to the spot. Then, just as she turned away from the window, a figure materialized at the edge of the darkness, lurking just behind the tree line. It wasn't Jake, but something darker, something ancient and hungry. Its hollow eyes burned straight through her. Run, it whispered, a voice like crumpling leaves, eerie, hollow, beckoning. Before she could process that fleeting command, the door splintered wider. You can't run from your sins, Emily. They're here for you. Jake's roar was raw and furious, shaking her to the core. Panicked, Emily stumbled back. She had to choose now. Trust Jake or embrace the lurking monstrosity outside? One beckoned with the promise of understanding and connection, while the other was wrapped in shadows, an echo of the past she could neither confront nor ignore. What do you want from me? She screamed, the words laced with desperation. The growling continued, more insistent now, demanding her attention. You're either with me or against me. Choose. Terrified of the growing shadows closing in, she felt the walls constricting around her, forcing her to make a decision. One door or the other, which would she choose? The echoes of her own heartbeat filled the room as she braced herself for the chaos that was coming, knowing one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. What if the monstrous presence was tied to everything she thought she escaped? The growling intensified as the door buckled, a newfound fury thrumming through the wood, sending splinters flying. Emily's breath hitched in her throat, each inhalation like a knife digging deeper into her panic. Time felt warped, seconds turned into an eternity as fear anchored her to the floor. The shadows outside writhed like living smoke, undulating with that ancient malevolence. Emily caught snippets of their whispers, frigid and taunting: join us, you belong with us. Each syllable curled around her like frigid tendrils, promising understanding laced with madness. No, no. She gasped, shaking her head. Her eyes darted between the door and the twisted figure lurking outside. She couldn't let herself be swept away. She could still fight. The door splintered again, sending a wave of terror coursing through her. Jake's voice rippled with twisted affection, deep and consuming. You think those shadows care for you? They want your essence, Emily. You need me. They're lying. She cried, glancing desperately at the rising shadows. They only want to hurt me. With a jarring crash, the door gave way, and a figure stumbled in: a disheveled Jake, eyes wide with desperation, hair wild like a tempest raging. But even in that frantic shamble, there was something wrong. His skin seemed unnaturally pale, reflections of shadows twisting across his face, clinging like cobwebs. Behind him, the darkness shifted, eager to overtake the light. She backed further into the room. Get away from me. The rawness in her voice echoed off the walls, pregnant with the anguish of rejection. Emily. I'm here to save you. He lunged for her, but the shadows crept closer, slick and serpentine, as if ready to swallow him whole. He hesitated, a flicker of realization crossing his features. They're here because of you, you know. Stop. Her voice broke, yet behind her fear lay something else, an ember of rage. You're the one who brought this upon me. Love? Doesn't it matter anymore? What I feel, what I've done. Jake's voice faltered, becoming low and gravelly, choked with sorrow. You have to remember. You are the key. The shadows pulsed around him as he said those words, and suddenly they surged toward Emily, claws of darkness clawing at her sanity. No! She screamed, diving to the side, just as a shadowy tendril whipped past her cheek, barely missing. Emily! Jake wailed, his reach thwarted. You have to let me in your heart. The only way to survive. The whispers grew louder, chanting incoherently, crashing over her like waves of despair. Each voice a reminder of past mistakes, losses weighed down with guilt. She squeezed her eyes shut, battling through the chaos within. But in that moment of denial and fear, a realization hit her like a shockwave. She was tethered to her past, bound by shame and regret. Jake was right. There was truth to be uncovered, buried beneath layers of pain. What would happen if she confronted it instead of running? Stay back! She screamed, a sudden burst of clarity sparking within her. I want to let you take me. The shadows temporarily paused, recoiling as if stung. Jake's eyes flickered between the remnants of hope and the abyss of anger. You need to choose, Emily. He shouted, backing away as the sinister presence crept forward, hunger in its glistening gaze. Unbeknownst to her, the air grew heavier, a pressure building around her like an invisible cage. With every breath, the walls inched closer. She felt the stir of defiance rise, but was it within her reach? Could she peel back the layers of this twisted reality? As Jake recoiled under the weight of the shadows, Emily felt a peculiar tug deep inside. Could she channel that fear? Flickers of rebellion ignited her heart. The shadows swelled, hungry, as if drawn to her newfound strength. The truth is darker than you can imagine, they murmured seductively, and it's time to see what you've hidden away. Would she surrender to the darkness or fight her way through her own haunted history? With a shuddering breath, she took a step forward, feeling the shadows grasp at her. Somewhere within, a decision had begun to take shape, and it thrummed with urgency. Could she face him again, or were the consequences too dire? As reality distorted around her, one question lingered: what horrors would reveal themselves if she dared to confront the truth? Emily's heart raced, a wild drum in the silence of the moment. Shadows twisted and flipped as if mocking her resolve. They whispered promises of unveiling the truths that lay in her deepest fears, the memories she brushed aside like dust on old photographs. Face your fears, Emily, the shadows beckoned, their voices a chilling lull that tugged at her edges. Each word slithered into her mind, curling around her like a serpent. You can't hide forever. Come to us, embrace your darkness. The air thickened, suffocating her, gripping her with invisible fingers. She willed herself to remember the memories flashing like lightning strikes. Each instance was a slap of regret, pain morphing into a tangible thing. There was Jake, the laughter they shared, the promises whispered in the dark. But then, there was betrayal, and the ache of self-doubt creeping in like a thief. The shadow tendrils wrapped tighter around her, eliciting a gasp as she fought against their cold grasp. Enough! She shouted, her voice gaining strength despite the tremor in her hands. I will define my truth. A deep rumble echoed from the shadows, a growl that resonated in her bones. You think you control it? You are far too naive, no. The defiance burst forth like sunlight breaking through a heavy storm. You don't define me. I choose what I hold. I choose to fight. Her heart, a defiant rebel, surged with renewed vigor. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if baffled by her resistance. She could feel their anger, bubbling just beneath the surface, ready to unleash a tempest of pain. Perhaps you do possess some courage, Jake's voice cut through the shadows, pleading yet domineering. But it's futile. The darkness within you only grows. It will consume you. Emily took a step backward, feeling the edge of the world behind her, a cliff of uncertainty. Then let it. Because whatever the darkness holds, I won't face it alone. Suddenly, Jake's figure flickered in and out, as if the shadows were pulling him back. She could see him fighting against them, his eyes pleading with her, still a haunting reminder of what had been, and what could potentially be lost. Don't let them pull you under. His desperation surged forth, filling the room with a desperate urgency that rattled her resolve. You need to starve the darkness. Dismiss it. Remember who you are. Slowly, the remnants of her life buried deep began to unfurl. She remembered the vibrant light in her laughter, the warmth of the sun on her skin, moments that felt pure and untouched. She held on to those memories as the shadows writhed in agitation, every pulse and beat pushing back against the encroaching doom. They hissed, angry that she dared to recollect such light in their presence. You can't escape what you've done. The past haunts you forever. Haunts? Maybe. She stood tall, letting the memories ignite her. But it doesn't define my future. With that, she thrust her hands forward, channeling every ounce of defiance into a push, the light of her memories cutting through the dark tendrils. Bright, white energy cascaded outward, sending shockwaves through the room. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of pure chaos. They scrambled back, their hold weakening, retreating like a tide. But as the light surged, she felt something dark creeping at her periphery, a more profound threat lurking just beyond that veil of shadows. What have you done? Jake's voice warped in horror, barely audible through the clamor. As the shadows dissipated, the room grew calm, yet Emily sensed something shifting in the air. A presence that was somehow darker, more sinister. Whispers fluttered around her, meaning unknown, weaving tales into her psyche. Just then, a chilling voice echoed from the depths of the shadows. You've merely scratched the surface, Emily. The true horror has yet to unveil itself. And with that, she realized the battle was far from over. What other darkness lay ahead? Would she be able to confront it? The shadows parted, but something deeper and more terrifying loomed ahead. What lurked just beyond the darkness, waiting for her to uncover? Would she dare to find out? Emily stood, breathless, the weight of the moment pressing down like a dense fog. The shadows had shrunk, but the dark presence they left behind loomed larger than ever. She felt it thrumming just beyond her awareness, a relentless echo that gnawed at her sanity. Instinctively, she turned, searching for Jake, but he melted back into the darkness just as she reached for him. Panic threatened to crush her resolve, and she staggered back, heart pounding. Had she truly won? Or was this just the calm before the storm? Jake! She called, her voice trembling. Where are you? We need to face this together. Silence hung heavily in the air, so thick it felt suffocating. The shadows had retreated, yet their whispers persisted, crawling into her ears. They twisted her memories, spinning tales of all she had lost, all she feared becoming. Alone. Pitiful. Just like her mother. You are all that remains, the shadows taunted. But such a fragile ember against the abyss. Emily steadied herself, fists clenched. No. You want to get to me. Each word echoed defiance, a battle cry against the phantoms that threatened to drown her. And then, out of nowhere, walls around her began to flicker, an electric pulse shimmering like a mirage. Images erupted like fireworks, scenes of her past replayed in frantic motion, gnashing teeth of doubt encircling her resolve. There was her childhood home, the shadows that had stalked her there, the screaming arguments, the haunting silences. She was drowning in nostalgia, a whirlpool sucking her down. The faces of family and friends twisted into nightmarish forms, each sneer a reminder of her failures. You think you can find happiness? You can't escape who you are. Stop it. She yelled into the eerie abyss, forcing her mind to latch onto something, anything. A flicker of light surged in her thoughts, the warmth of a friend's embrace, laughter ringing out on a summer day. You don't own me. But the darker figure snickered, its laugh ringing hollow. This is just the beginning, Emily. The true unveiling will consume you completely. You can't keep fighting forever. A cold dread wormed its way into her heart. She squeezed her eyes shut, feeling her realities collide. A boy's laughter faded, replaced by Jake's anguished cry. You must remember. We're stronger together. Her pulse quickened, and it struck her the knowledge bloomed like a black rose, sharp and beautiful. If they wanted to toy with her, they would have to face her instead. Summoning every flicker of light left within her, she opened her eyes wide, the glow returning to her fists. Including Jake, even in spirit, she felt an unexpected surge of power course through her. I want to let you win. I choose life. Suddenly, she felt a crack in the air, like thunder rumbling ominously. Shadows splintered, their grip weakened, almost shivering before her will. But as the ground beneath her trembled, the whispers morphed into screams, and the atmosphere thickened, an all-encompassing dread bubbling from the depths. Foolish girl, a sinister voice licked through the air. True terror lies not in the shadows, but in your soul. What do you hide, Emily? What horrors await to be unveiled? With every ounce of her being, Emily felt the pull of something far worse than all the shadows combined. It trembled in the corner of her thoughts, a malignant seed sprouting roots in the hidden corners of her mind. As light fought against the encroaching blackness, new visions flooded her betrayal deeper than she had imagined, muddy truths lurking in the corridors of her past. A heavy, suffocating truth that sealed her fate. Would she dare confront it? And then, a bone-chilling laugh resonated, echoing in the desolate chamber. Welcome to your greatest fear, Emily. Face it or it will consume you. Every nerve screamed as Emily braced herself for the unraveling that awaited. Would she have the strength to confront the darkness deep within, or would it tear her apart? What secrets awaited in the depths? Would she realize the true horror of what she had buried before it was too late? The air grew still, a chilling anticipation settling in the depths of her chest. Emily's heart raced, the last echoes of laughter reverberating in her soul like an ominous bell tolling in the night. She felt it then, that darkness and insidious presence inching ever closer, brushing against her skin like the coldest breath of winter. Stop hiding. She shouted, glaring into the vast emptiness where shadows danced just beyond reach. What do you want from me? The words trembled out, strained and desperate, but she refused to feel weak. No more. A flicker caught her eye, drawing her gaze to a figure emerging from the darkness. It was Jake, his face washed in the pale light of terror and anguish. Emily, don't let it pull you under. You have to fight. His words drove deep, echoing with anguish that mirrored her own. But it's changing, I can feel it. She could scarcely breathe as her thoughts spiraled. Was it truly the shadows that threatened her, or something far more sinister lurking within? Remember our pact? He asked, eyes wide, pleading. If we stand together, but then, the haunting voice returned, slithering around her mind like a snake coiling tighter. You think you can escape your truths by hiding behind fleeting shadows? They will not protect you. A shiver danced down her spine, cold and unrelenting. The memories flooded back, scenes etched into her very being. The betrayal of a friend. The agonizing silence of her family, the truth they'd buried deep. And there it was, lurking her darkest secret, growing stronger, clawing at her defenses, whispering promises that twisted like barbed wire in her heart. Suddenly, the ground shook again. The shadows crawled, dark tendrils twisting from every corner, reaching for her. Emily stumbled back, adrenaline pulsing through her veins as she fought to keep her footing. She would not go down without a fight. I refuse to be defined by your lies. Ah, the voice crooned in delight, savoring her defiance. But it is not I who defines you, Emily. It is your own guilt, your own truths that bind you. Are you ready to unveil your greatest fear? Fury ignited within her, burning brighter than the shadows that threatened to consume her. I'll show you what I'm made of. In that moment, the darkness charged, a living black mass surging toward her. Lightning exploded in her mind as she unleashed everything she had, light pouring from her fists in a blinding flash. The crack of thunder erupted, sending shockwaves through the chamber. But the darkness retaliated. It wrapped around her, squeezing, choking her resolve. With every ounce of strength she summoned, the shadows only grew more aggressive, shifting and morphing, taking the forms of those she loved. Faces twisted in anger, accusing her of betrayal. "No!" she cried, pulling memories into her grasp, the laughter, the warmth, the whispers of love. "You do not control me." With a deafening roar, the shadows writhed and recoiled, flickering like a dying flame before her onslaught. For a brief moment, she felt liberation, as if the choking vines of despair began to crumble. But they clawed back viciously, sinking their teeth into her deepest fears, flooding her with memories that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. And then, silence. For a heartbeat, there was stillness. Words hung unspoken in the air, pulsating with pending destruction. Emily stood on the precipice, ready to tip into the abyss, when an image flashed before her eyes, the last time she had seen her mother standing in that very room, eyes filled with despair. "Mom?" The name slipped through her lips, soft and disbelieving. Suddenly, the walls around her erupted into chaos, screams, echoes of her past, hardcore truths violently ripping open wounds she had tried to forget. All that she had buried now tore at her sanity, begging to be confronted, revealed. As shadows danced around her, taunting her with the horrors they held, one question anchored her: what if the worst betrayal was not from others, but from herself? "Face it, Emily," the sinister voice hissed, a promise laced within its malice. With the weight of the world pressing down harder than ever, Emily found herself standing between two realities, the illusion of safety behind her and the inevitable truth hopping from shadow to shadow ahead. Which path would she choose? As the darkness threatened to swallow her whole, a chilling realization washed over her. What if the secret she'd buried was not just a terror of her past, but also the key to her survival? Would she have the courage to unearth it before surrendering to the competition between life and shadow? A wave of dread washed over Emily as her heart thudded like a war drum in her chest. The shadows pulsed closer, their cold tendrils creeping along her skin, igniting every nerve with their terrifying chill. She felt their hunger, a primal urge that threatened to consume everything she once held dear. Each breath tasted of panic, and her fingers trembled uncontrollably. "Emily," Jake's voice broke through the chaos, a thread of desperation in the storm. "Look at me. You have to focus. Don't let it take you." She forced her gaze from the swirling darkness to meet his eyes, but words faded in the night. The shadows shifted around him, flickering with memories of betrayal. Laughter that once felt warm turned hollow. "How can I fight this? This darkness, it knows me. It knows everything." "Then you have to use it against them," he urged, inching closer despite the creeping blackness that clawed at his heels. "Face your truth. It doesn't own you unless you let it." But deep inside, Emily felt the truth coil tighter, a serpent ready to strike. The voice echoed again, seductive and cruel. "You think you can break free? You've fed me for too long. Accept me, I am you." "Shut up," she screamed, her voice a fragile thread against the tide of despair. "You don't own me." With every ounce of defiance she could muster, she summoned memories, the good and the bad, her connections to the world outside this torment. Bright flashes of her childhood, the warmth of her mother's embrace, friends she had laughed with, their joy was her weapon, and she trembled as she wielded it. The shadows shrieked in fury, bucking against her burgeoning light. "No. You can't hold on to them. They will fail you. Just like they always have." Mistaking the past for her present, she felt the fabric of reality twist. Every whispered accusation echoed louder, making her knees weaken. Every betrayal dug deeper, twisting her heart with guilt. "It's true, I am not blameless," she whispered to herself, the shadows curling closer, tasting her doubt. Suddenly, a pulse of light exploded around her, illuminating the room for the briefest moment. Jake flinched but held firm against the onslaught, faith igniting in his eyes. "That's it. Use it. Remember, they're just shadows. They can't hurt you." The darkness roared, a cacophony of anger that rattled the very foundation of her being. You're weak, Emily. Your memories lie. You'll always return to your darkest truths, it hissed, the voices blurring into a sinister chorus of disapproval. The shadows changed form, becoming twisted reflections. The faces of her loved ones morphed into expressions of anger. You abandoned us, they cried, reaching out to her as if to pull her into the abyss with them. Heart pounding, she fought the instinct to retreat, pulling strength from the ache in her chest. No. She bellowed. You will not drown me in guilt. Join us, Emily. The shadows beckoned, insidiously sweet. We'll protect you. Time seemed to stretch as the light flickered weakly in response to the ferocity of the darkness. Memories surged, threatening to overwhelm, dragging her down into a swirl of despair. Just as they began to pull her under, a singular thought pierced through, sharper than any accusation. What if confronting the truth was the only path out? With a surge of determination, fueled by sheer necessity, she lashed out with both fists, sending shimmering light in a furious arc. The shadows howled, recoiling, their forms writhing as if she had burned them with fire. But even as she sent them retreating, she felt their malevolence harden around her, more resolute than before. This isn't over, they hissed, their voices a haunting echo through the void. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The light flickered, sputtering as if it were searching for the last embers of hope. I have to find my truth, she whispered, the words igniting a flicker of rebellion. But just then, a new sound emerged, a soft sobbing that slipped through the cracks of the darkness, reaching her ears. It was so raw, so desperate, that Emily's heart twisted with dread. Who's there? Shadows shifted again, but this time they parted, revealing a slender figure in the depths. Her breath quickened. Was this figure a friend, an ally, or yet another illusion meant to ensnare her? The sobbing grew louder, echoing through the chamber as Emily took an uncertain step forward. What's wrong? She asked, voice trembling as hope clung to her like a lifeline. Help me, the figure wailed, eyes wide, glistening with fear. They looked so familiar. But as the light began to fade once more, she felt a gut-wrenching realization: who stood before her might change everything. Could this revelation be her salvation, or would it lead her deeper into the malevolence that hungered for her soul? As shadows swirled dangerously around them, Emily knew she had to decide. Would she confront her past and save the figure before her, or would she succumb to the darkness that slithered ever closer? Emily's heart raced, pounding so furiously that it echoed in her ears. With every breath, she fought back the instinct to flee from the figure that emerged from the shadows. Help me, the voice was haunting, a reflection of her own despair, but it rang familiar. Fear clawed at her throat, every instinct screaming at her to retreat. But there was something recognizable hidden in that voice. Mom? The words slipped out, raw and choked with longing. The figure stepped closer, emerging from the dark, and Emily's chest tightened. Yes, it was her mother, but she was different, her face marred by pain, eyes clouded with sorrow. Emily, please. You have to break free, she pleaded, her voice trembling as shadows festered at her feet. Tears burned in Emily's eyes. What happened to you? The words were a whisper, almost lost in the heavy air. This darkness, it was always here, her mother replied, her voice a low murmur. I couldn't protect you. I didn't confront it. Emily's heart sank. All those years, her mother had been battling the same demons that now threatened to consume her. No, Mom, I can't let it take us both. Then fight, her mother urged, desperation etching every word. Face the truth together. But before Emily could muster a response, the shadows trembled, lunging toward her mother with a ferocity that sent cold chills racing down Emily's spine. Stay back, she cried, shielding her mother even as the darkness wrapped around them both, threatening to drag them under. The shadows hissed, the voices intensifying. You think you can escape, little girl? They rose like a tidal wave, whispering secrets of betrayals, dredging up old wounds. You are nothing without your guilt, Emily. Accept your fate. No. She screamed, her voice trembling with anger. You don't define me. You won't take my mother away. As she shouted, a surge of light erupted from her core, illuminating the dark space around her. The shadows recoiled, screams echoing like wailing banshees. It wasn't just her memories that lit the way, it was the fierce determination forged in the wake of her struggle. She felt her mother's presence strengthen her, a flicker of hope lighting up her veins. Use it, Emily. Her mother urged, the words wrapping around her like a shield. Remember what binds us together. The warmth surged within, driven by every tender memory, every laughter shared, every moment of unwavering love that defied the anguish. She let that light blossom, pushing against the shadows as they scrambled backward, temporarily blindsided by her unexpected power. The darkness hissed in anger, "You're nothing." But Emily shook her head, flames of resolve igniting in her eyes. "No, I am everything. I am my truth." With a defiant roar, she thrust her hands forward, the light pouring from her palms like a torrent, scattering the shadows around them. Each beam burned brightly, revealing the faces of those who had once loved her, the smiles, the warmth elements she had buried beneath layers of fear. The shadows writhed, damaged and angry, as they split apart from her force, yet an echo of something deeper tugged at her. "Face it." A deeper voice, dark and familiar, rang through the chaos. "There are worse horrors than shadows. Can you look your truth in the eye?" The moment hung heavy as Emily felt the familiar shape shift in her chest. She had always hidden from so many aspects of herself, guilt over her mother's pain, the regret of leaving people behind, the fear of being alone. Shadows danced around her legs, wrapping her in despair. The unresolved torment of past relationships tugged at her heart, attempting to pull her back into their depths. "Emily. Let go of the fear," her mother's voice soothed amidst the chaos. "Unearth the love buried beneath. We can unmask the truth together." Could she? Could she really confront everything she had concealed? She gritted her teeth, making the only choice she knew to be right. "I'll face whatever it is. With you, I'm not alone." Giving in to her fears meant taking back her life. The light burned brighter, illuminating the dark corners of her mind, exposing the tangled roots of lingering agony. "Fine, Emily, face your demons," the shadows spat, their form twisting as if sensing the upcoming confrontation. As the darkness coiled around her, pulling her into the depths of her memories, she stepped forward, gripping her resolve. Emily took a deep breath, willing herself to face the truths she had hidden away. She saw glimpses of her relationships, the good and the bad, the heartaches and joys all woven into her story. "I face you," she shouted as memories sparked like fireworks in her mind, blasting through the suffocating gloom around her. "You will not break me." And then it dawned on her, the shadows were not just threats, they were manifestations of everything she feared, her pain begging to be acknowledged. Beneath that darkness lay a truth that could set her free. The chaos around her swirled, shadows summoning their might, but Emily wouldn't yield. She summoned all the love, joy, and memories she cherished most, her mother's presence amplifying that light. Together, they cried, their bond powerful enough to push back the shadows. With a blinding burst of brilliance, she confronted the dark force, the culmination of every heartbreak, fear, and regret. "I am not afraid to face my past. I will rise." The shadow let out a primal scream as light enveloped the darkness, unraveling layers of pain and despair. Emily felt currents tear through existence, a reckoning that flung shadows back into retreat. "Yes." Her mother's voice intertwined with the exodus of darkness, filling the space with reassurance. "Show them your strength." Just as victory seemed to loom, the last remnants of darkness writhed for one final assault, a tendril racing toward her, desperate to cling to her fears. Emily filled her lungs, drawing from the light inside, refusing to surrender. "No. I choose love. I choose truth. You cannot take me." With that declaration, she erupted with fervor, bathing the space in a waterfall of light that scorched the shadows, unraveling them into threads of nothingness. Their cries faded into whispers, lost to the wind. And then stillness. Emily sank to her knees, heart racing but free. The air felt clean, devoid of the suffocating weight of fear. A warmth enveloped her, the presence of her mother solidifying beside her. "You did it, Emily. You faced them." Tears streamed down her cheeks, incandescent with relief and warmth. "We did it." Together, they watched as the darkness faded under the brilliance of their shared strength. Emily held tightly to her mother's hand, knowing that from this point forward, she could embrace whatever lay ahead. "Now, let us create our future," her mother said, and Emily nodded. Every step from this moment was a promise, no more hiding. As they walked forward together, the sun broke through the clouds, spilling light into her soul. The future awaited full of hope, love, and the adventure of truth. And in that new dawn, she found herself whole again. Before we end, there is something super important for you. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss future exclusive stories, trust me. It's the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think happens next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters.